Part 68. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Ixie. Chapter 671. Chapter 671. Whose son is he? Miss, the results of the identification of the father-son relationship between Yehantian and Yezikin are out. Just when Ye Wei was about to rush to G City to go to school, Pei Yuchen suddenly told her that the results would be out early. Ye Wei asked further and learned that Yehantian and Yezikin are definitely not related by blood. When the news came out, she was really shocked. Even though she had already suspected it, she was still uncontrollably surprised when she confirmed the truth. Yezikin is not Yehantian's son. This is probably a fatal blow to Yehantian. So, Mrs. Ye, who has been talking about how much she likes and loves Yehantian, has already cuckolded him. Once this cuckold was put on, he actually lasted more than 20 years. For more than 20 years, no one has discovered the truth. No one has ever doubted that Yezikin is not a child of the Ye family. But they encountered the truth. If Mosi and Yezikin didn't have the same crescent birthmark on their waists, they might never have known about the accident. Miss, since you let us know the truth, it means that God is helping us take revenge. You should make good use of the 3-point paternity test results at this moment to suppress Yehantian. Pei Yuchen kept saying such words in Ye Wei's ears. Ye was the only one who understood what Pei Yuchen meant. But she wanted to ask, don't you have a good relationship with Uncle Mosi? If it is revealed that Yezikin is the biological son of Mosi and Madame Ye, aren't you worried about the impact on Mosi? Pei Yuchen was speechless for a moment. The only thing to do at night is to close it when it's good. Assistant Pei, I don't mean to accuse you. I fully understand your desire for revenge. In fact, you hope to fulfill Grandma's last wish as soon as possible to repay your kindness, right? Yes, only words guessed Pei Yuchen's heart. The reason why Pei Yuchen is keen to help her take revenge is not only the fact that he received the order, but also Pei Yuchen's desire to repay Mr. Jiao and Mrs. Jiao. Before Mrs. Jiao left, she hoped that the Jiao family's great revenge would be avenged, and her granddaughter would not be allowed to be with the Ye family. Mrs. Jiao's last wish is Mr. Jiao's wish and his heart. Pei Yuchen wanted to repay his kindness in a more drastic way, but it was a pity that Ye Wei couldn't completely agree with his ideas. Ye is the only one who has concerns. Of course, Pei Yuchen has thought about these issues. But based on Pei Yuchen's understanding of Mosi, he said, Mr. Mosi is not a person who cannot bear gossip. Even if the truth of this matter is revealed, Mr. Mosi will not be greatly affected. Ye Wei disagrees. You think it won't affect you, but in fact it will. Uncle Mosi thinks that he hasn't met the right person, so he would rather stay single, but if he feels that Yezikin is not a popular person, what will we do then? Mr. Mosi has a sense of responsibility. As long as he knows that Yezikin is his son, he will protect Yezikin to the end. That's just what you think, your intuitive guess cannot represent others. Ye was the only one who disagreed with Pei Yuchen's words. She only remembered one sentence, people's hearts are unpredictable. People's hearts are unpredictable, and she would not take risks with Yezikin, otherwise she would not be worthy of Yezikin's trust in her. The two of them had their own opinions. It was clear that they were not arguing, but they felt each other's seriousness and stubbornness. I want to find out the relationship between Madame Ye and Mosi. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Luke Ixie. Chapter 672. Chapter 672. Two people have a relationship. Mrs. Ye gave birth to a child for Mosi, but no one discovered the truth, and there was not even the slightest suspicion. This means that when the two had a relationship, Mrs. Ye and Yehantian were already together. By the way, according to Yezikin's birthday, he should have been conceived when Yehantian and Madame Ye just got married. Meaning, not long after Yehantian and Madame Ye got married, Madame Ye had a relationship with Mosi. The truth of this matter seems to be more interesting than they imagined. Pei-Yuchen raised doubts. Mrs's feelings for Yehantian began when she was in college. She really liked her. Why did she cheat on her in the early stages of marriage? The only thing Ye knew without thinking was, their union at that time was not due to mutual love, but unrequited love. It is Mrs Ye who likes Yehantian, and Yehantian likes her mother Huaqian Hui. Unrequited love is the most painful. The marriage between Mrs Ye and Yehantian is not necessarily a harmonious and beautiful life. So Mrs Ye couldn't bear the loneliness and had an affair? Mrs Ye, she is a person who pays great attention to status. Since she is married to Yehantian, even if the relationship between the couple is not good, she will not let outsiders know, and she will not let herself down. No matter whether MOC's status is better than that of Yehantian, it is called depravity for Mrs Ye to hang out with him under the guise of a married woman. This is not a good thing in the first place and would be embarrassing. Pei-Yuchen tested MOSI, and Ye Wei tested Mrs Ye. The two of them really didn't show any guilt. Ye Wei and Pei-Yuchen asked, is it because our hints were not obvious enough for them to understand? It's impossible if you do something bad, even if others don't mean it, they will think about it. This is strange. The two of them seemed to have lost their memory and showed no memory of having sex. But Yezikin is indeed the child of two people. Could it be that they had a relationship but didn't know it? What circumstances would allow two people with family backgrounds who are not promiscuous to do such a thing? They didn't even dare to guess. Pei-Yuchen really wanted to tell MOSI directly, Yezikin is your son, his own flesh and blood. In this case, maybe MOSI will tell him the truth about that year. But every time the words came to his lips, he couldn't ask. Pei-Yuchen could only urge Ye Wei to agree to let him reveal it to everyone. Miss, I really can't stand it anymore. If we continue to investigate like this, there are so many limiting factors. Relying solely on calculation may not necessarily be the truth of the matter. You're right, but we still can't say it. Pei-Yuchen thought about it over and over, and an idea came to his mind. Miss, since you insist on this, I have another idea. Ye Wei snapped his fingers at the same time. What a coincidence, I also have an idea. You speak first. It's better that you speak first. The two of them were humble, and Pei-Yuchen said with a faint smile, if your identity is not revealed, wouldn't it be better to wait until Yezikin gets the Ye group and then let Yehantian know that he actually has no heir? Good. This is of course good. But time waits for no one. Yehantian is now in his prime. When he completely hands over the company to Yezikin, will he have to wait until the year of the monkey? Miss, please tell me if you have any good ideas. Let MOSI meet Madame Ye directly. Then we will know what their relationship is. Ye Wei decided to do something cruel. She can be decisive and resolute in matters that won't harm Yezikin anyway. So sleepy, I finally got home from school. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 673. Chapter 673 You have a son. Pei-Yuchen went to make an appointment with MOSI, and Ye Wei went to make an appointment with Mrs Ye. They were led to the same place respectively, and they got off the bus together by coincidence. MOSI and Madame Ye looked at each other. No, they just looked at each other. The two turned away without any reaction and continued walking to the agreed place. Ye Wei and Pei-Yuchen, who had arrived here early to wait, were hiding in the dark. Seeing their calm reactions, they felt so amazing. It seems like they really don't know each other. But a son was born to a stranger. Seeing Mrs Ye and MOSI walk in, Ye Wei quickly waved to Pei Yuchen, let's go out now. Tell them some truth if necessary. Okay. Their planned positions were in two different directions, so as to prevent Mosi and Madame Ye from discovering that they were deliberately playing tricks. However, it is not as good as God's calculation. Mrs. was focused on dealing with Ye Wei and didn't think much about it. Mosi is very thoughtful, and just because Pei Yuchen specially invited him to this place, he has no doubts. When Pei Yuchen handed Mosi a cup of tea, Mosi took it calmly and took a sip. He said straight to the point, recently, you seem to want to get me involved with the Ye family. Pei Yuchen was slightly startled. Moc's words were unexpected but also reasonable. Mosi is extremely sensitive to people's hearts, just like Yezikin. He can detect other people's thoughts from the beginning, but they don't explain it directly. When the right time comes when you can't bear it anymore, they will point it out all at once, making it impossible for you to make excuses or lie. Yi Chen, you are also a child that I have watched grow up, don't you want to tell me frankly? Mosi is giving Pei Yuchen a chance to confess. Pei Yuchen was silent. Long time. Pei Yuchen asked, Mr. Mosi, if I told you that you still have a son in this world, what would you do? Mosi looked incredulously, with a hint of joking, I have a son? That's impossible. He asked and answered himself, convinced that he had no lover, let alone a son. But now that the matter has come to this, Mosi is also curious as to why Pei Yuchen mentioned this matter to him again and again. Did you encounter something or someone? It's not easy for you to have such a big misunderstanding. Mosi has found out the truth, it's really not that simple. However, even though he held 3 paternity test certificates in his hand, he felt a little unable to explain it. Pei Yuchen thought about it for a moment and said, some time ago, I accidentally discovered a young man who has the same crescent moon mark as you, sir. Is the birthmark the mark brought by Yu Sheng? Mosi raised his eyes. Pei Yuchen can conceal things but will not lie. And he would not say some baseless things without any basis, so Mosi asked directly at that moment, what evidence did you find? Pei Yuchen hesitated for a moment, took out the identification results from his bag, and pushed Pei Yuchen and Yezikin's copies in front of Mosi. The name above is a pseudonym, but Mosi knew that it must have something to do with him. Since the result can be seen at a glance, Mosi chose to read it word for word from beginning to end. Perhaps he is taking this time to mentally prepare himself. When Mosi saw the last part, Pei Yuchen explained to him directly, this is the appraisal result of Mr. Mosi and the young man I met. It has been verified 3 times to ensure that it is correct. Mosi stared and asked in a deep voice, who is that person? End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 674. Chapter 674, Cheating and Being Mean. Mr. Moss, before I tell you the identity of that person, can you tell me what you would do? I have a son. Mosi raised his finger slightly, his expression was indescribably rich. I really can't believe that I, who plan to live alone for the rest of my life, would actually have a son. Mosi keeps his integrity and never messes with the relationship between men and women. He sticks to his principles himself, as well as externally. A son suddenly appeared, even a mentally strong person would find it unbelievable. Pei Yuchen nodded to express understanding. Sir, once I confirm it, I may be able to arrange a meeting between you and the young man's mother. Pei Yuchen's so-called consultation was actually contacting Ye Wei privately. At this moment, Ye Wei and Madame Ye were face to face. Even if they had nothing to talk about, they still wouldn't feel bored. Because just looking at the other person's eyes and face is very interesting. Mrs. Ye took the seat first and made a preemptive strike. My time is very precious. I will give you half an hour at most, so if you have anything to say, just say it. You know I don't like to listen to nonsense. Mrs. put her handbag aside, sat upright, folded her hands, and looked very fashionable. Ye Wei raised his eyebrows and smiled softly. Mrs. Why are you so impatient? I'm afraid that if I just say one sentence, you won't be able to adapt. Mrs. did not take her reminder to heart, but still raised her chin arrogantly. There is nothing to hide between us. What should be said, just say it. When Mrs. Gang finished speaking, Ye Wei added a decisive sentence: Yezikin is not the legal heir of the Ye family. What nonsense are you talking about, you crazy girl? Mrs. leaned forward, put her hands on the table, looked at Ye Wei, and the atmosphere instantly became high. There's no nonsense. Ye Wei's mouth curved slightly, and he took out the identification results that he had already copied from his handbag. This is the one that proves that Yehantian and Yezikin have no parent-child relationship. Mrs. was extremely angry when she saw it. Do you think a false paternity test can ruin my son's identity and future? Madame Ye grabbed the water glass at hand and threw it towards Ye Wei. In an instant, Ye Wei grabbed Madame Ye's hand quickly and turned his wrist, causing Madame Ye to tilt her hand to the left, and all the water in the cup spilled on the ground. You this. When Madame Ye was about to curse again, Ye Wei shook Madame Ye's hand away heavily. A sneer rose from the corner of his mouth. At this time, Ye Wei didn't need to be polite to Mrs. Want to throw water at me, scold me, what qualifications do you have? Ye Wei kept asking questions, which made Mrs. speechless. The cup in Mrs. hand fell to the ground and rolled around several times. Xiao Li. You have finally revealed your true nature. On the surface, you are well behaved, but in reality you are vicious. As expected, you have a mother who is a bitch, and your daughter is not much better. Every time Mrs. gets angry, she always mentions Hua Qinhui in front of Ye Wei. Every time she heard that Hua Qinhui was falsely accused, Ye Wei, as a daughter, could not control her violent temper. She clenched her fists and her eyes fluctuated. He took out another identification result from his handbag that confirmed that Mosi and Yezikin were the biological father and son. Didn't you always forcefully humiliate my mother by claiming to be the noble wife of Yes Group, but now, who is the cheater? Madame Ye also sought her own death and insisted on scolding her mother in front of Xiao Lingdang. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lu Kixi. Chapter 675. Chapter 675. What happened 22 years ago? How is this possible? When Madame Ye touched the two appraisal reports, her fingers were trembling. She couldn't face this fact. Xiao Li, what are you thinking about? You deliberately fabricated such a lie to harm my son. Don't worry, of course I won't hurt my brother. Seeing Mrs. panic, Ye Wei became calmer and calmer. She smiled and spoke in a calm tone as if she were narrating a daily story, because I know that even if my brother leaves the Ye family, he can still make great achievements with his own strength. What really binds him by blood ties, it's you and Yehantian. Boom. Mrs. slapped her palm on the table. Madame Ye angrily pointed at Ye Wei and accused, I know, you are deliberately spreading this rumor, hoping that Chen'er will leave Yejia after they have a rift with the Ye family, so that you can be with Chen'er with peace of mind. Right? After questioning, Madame Ye held her head high and sneered disdainfully at Ye Ziwei, I tell you, as long as I am here, your machinations will never succeed. Facing Madame Ye, who lost her temper, Ye Wei did not feel the slightest threat. She sighed helplessly, it's not menopause, why are you so irritable? If you don't believe it, you can confirm it yourself. Oh, I can tell you that you are indeed Yezikin's biological mother, but you're my husband Yehantian, has nothing to do with my brother. Ye Wei's calm appearance outweighed Mrs's aura. In fact, Her heart was already turbulent. But she must be strong enough to hide all the fear of leaving the hotel and not lose her momentum in front of others. Especially in front of the enemy, you must not lose. By the way, for the sake of my brother, I can kindly remind you that you'd better do things like appraisal quietly, so as not to expose the scandal and lose your most important face. Ye Wei stood up calmly, tidied up the 2 identification documents on the table, and placed them together in Madame Ye's hands. Feeling the vibration of her cell phone in her bag, Ye Wei took out her cell phone while walking. When she was standing at the door, she saw Pei Yuchen asking for her permission. Ye Wei thought about it and refused. She gave Pei Yuchen a quick reply, "If you can postpone the time, it would be best. If not, just adapt accordingly." Pei Yuchen received Ye Wei's instructions and temporarily rejected MOC's request. Although MOSI didn't say it explicitly, it has been like this since he separated from Pei Yuchen. Pei Yuchen's scope of communication is very narrow, and he only goes around and around with those few things. It's not difficult to find the reason. Yejia. Just hearing this surname makes me feel something unusual. Yejia is no more than Yezikin. Yezikin is 22 years old this year. Mosi frowned and thought deeply, and a blurry picture suddenly flashed in his mind. His heartbeat accelerated suddenly, and at that moment, he himself was confused. 22 years ago, he happened to come to S City. That time. No. Even Mosi himself was suspicious of the guess and did not dare to get in the car. Pei Yuchen, we haven't finished what we were talking about last time. Is the child you are talking about related to the Ye family? Mosi went straight to the point when he spoke, so that Pei Yuchen didn't know how to cover up or lie. That child is not someone you often mention, is it, Yezikin? End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 676. Chapter 676, Acknowledging the Relationship Between Father and Son. Mosi named Yezikin's name, and he was 90% sure of it. Facing Moc's question, Pei Yuchen remained silent, which was his acquiescence. Sure enough. Mosi knew he was right. But he couldn't figure out why Yezikin became his son? This is a question that confuses everyone, including Mosi himself. Sir, do you really have no memory at all? Pei Yuchen couldn't believe that Mosi had no memory of this. Mosi replied calmly, no. Has no recollection. He just remembered that there was an accident in City S 22 years ago. He was not sure if something happened by mistake at that time. Moreover, he didn't want to mention it in front of the juniors. He would rather check it out himself. Mosi clapped his hands and said, who else knows about this matter? Teacher Pei Yuchen explained, in addition to me, there is also Miss. The lady in Pei Yuchen's mouth naturally refers to Ye Wei. Mosi knows it in his heart. He knew Ye Wei's thoughts about Yezikin, so he didn't have to worry that Ye Wei would use this matter to stir up trouble. Mosi carefully considered the matter in his mind and tactfully reminded Pei Yuchen to stop. I will investigate this matter myself. Pei Yuchen asked back, so Mr. Mosi, are you planning to reveal your identity? No, Mosi raised a hand to signal to stop. When I find out the truth, I will make my own arrangements. Mosi frowned slightly, his eyes dark. When Pei Yuchen talked about the birthmark on Yezikin and the feeling that Ye Wei had mentioned, coupled with the paternity test, Mosi could already confirm that Yezikin was his son. When he figured out the ins and outs of this matter, of course he would not allow his own flesh and blood to continue to bear other people's surnames. Mosi has a strong sense of responsibility. Once Yezikin's identity is confirmed, the first thing he has to do is take Yezikin to recognize his ancestor. By the way, help me contact girl Chiao Chiao, I want to see her. MOSI wants to see Ye Wei. The only time I was invited by MOSI that night, I had doubts, but I went to the appointment without fear. She knew the progress of the whole matter very well, but she couldn't guess what MOSI was thinking and planning at all. The two of them had afternoon tea, both of them had different ideas. Uncle MOSI, when I had a video chat with my grandpa recently, I kept hearing him talking about you. Yahweh first raised the topic, but it was one that had nothing to do with the actual truth. MOSI understood, she was just trying to liven up the atmosphere. Or perhaps waiting for him to take the initiative to make a request. MOSI had to admit that the little girl whom Mr. Chiao admired so much was indeed smart. She is well behaved and courteous in front of her elders, but she is not completely gentle and submissive. She has her own way of doing things, which makes it difficult for people to make mistakes, which is quite interesting. MOSI asked Yezikin to go home, and the others had already bought a mattress because Chiao, let's put aside the matter of Mr. Chiao today. I have something to talk to you about. Uncle MOSI, if you have any questions, just ask. If I can solve it, I will definitely help. Of course you can. MOSI was very sure of Yewi's value in the whole incident, such as her influence on Yezikin. I already know that Yezikin is my son. When MOSI frankly revealed his identity, Yewi's eyes instantly became bright. So, Uncle MOSI, you know the reason? Why are you the biological father of brother, Yezikin? What is the relationship between you and MRS yet? End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 677. Chapter 677, Take off your clothes. Can't answer your question. MOSI confessed in front of a young junior, I don't know exactly what happened back then. He and MRS didn't know each other, but they had a son in common. I can only say now that I am glad that the child has grown into an excellent and responsible man. At least Yezikin has not been affected by Yehantian's dark side. This is what MOSI most recognized after learning about the blood relationship. Uncle MOSI, could it be that you have been injured and lost your memory, so you can't remember your own affairs? Jojo, put away your rich imagination. The implication is to deny yes only guess. Yewiwei asked MOSI if he knew Madame Ye, but MOSI was very sure that he was not familiar with Madame Ye and had never even seen her face. MOSI vaguely mentioned that he had been to S City 22 years ago. There are many young and energetic MOSI who are wandering around in City S and have no contact with the private lives of other women. But, there seems to be an accident. At that time, I was drunk, and even my memory after drinking was hazy. MOSI didn't think about it, was he single and lonely, or was he really involved with a woman? But when I woke up the next day, I found myself naked on the bed, with no one around me, not even female belongings. MOSI left City S in a hurry, not taking that matter to heart at all. No one came to him for anything after that, and he forgot about that unknown night of absurdity. That's all MOSI could think of. And MRS side. MRS got the belongings of Yehantian and Yezikin again for verification, and the final result confirmed that the two were not related by blood. When the lady learned of this cruel result that night, she almost collapsed to the ground as if she had lost all her strength. It's impossible, it's impossible. She didn't want to believe that the son she had always been proud of was not the true heir of the Ye family group, but an unknown. MRS still doesn't know who Yezikin's biological father is. At this moment, Yehantian, who rarely went home for the first time, pushed open the door and walked in. Madame Ye was so frightened that she dropped her cell phone. Ah, Madame Ye looked at Yehantian, her heart beating like a drum. What are you, why are you here? Madame Ye stared at Yehantian closely. She didn't even dare to ask Yahantian if he already knew the truth. People who do bad things always feel uneasy. Yahantian, who had just entered the door, stared at Madame Ye with burning eyes. The men of the couple did not look at each other coldly, but they had their own thoughts. Madame Ye asked anxiously, "What are you doing back here?" Yahantian took off his coat by himself and looked away from Mrs. Ye. "This is my home, what other reason do I need to come back?" Mrs. Ye looked at Yahantian's back, quickly grabbed her phone and deleted all the messages in it. Mrs. Ye felt uneasy. She didn't dare to guess or ask. Yahantian took a shower in the bathroom and came out wearing a bathrobe. Mrs. Ye didn't know if it was because of her own inner feelings. Seeing Yahantian at this moment, she always felt that something was wrong. What exactly is it? She couldn't answer it for a while. Yahantian walked up to Madame Ye and the two looked at each other. Yahantian suddenly reached out and hugged Madame Ye, lowered his head and kissed her cheek. The restless hands moved from top to bottom, and even started to untie Mrs. Ye's home clothes. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 678. Chapter 678, Resisting Closeness. When Yahantian's hand had touched her skin, Mrs. Ye reacted and pushed the person away with force. "What are you doing?" Mrs. Ye resisted Yahantian's approach, which angered Yahantian. Yahantian grabbed her. Not only did he not coax or explain, but he increased his strength and seemed to be forcing her. Of course, Mrs. Ye was not a vegetarian. She resisted forcefully, and the two of them exchanged cold eyebrows. No matter how good the atmosphere was, it became as cold as ice. "What are you doing?" Madame Ye, who had long been disappointed with Yahantian, was no longer influenced by Yahantian or unable to refuse Yahantian's tenderness as before. At this time, Mrs. Ye has turned into a hedgehog with thorns all over her body to protect herself. "You are my wife, and it is your responsibility to serve me." "Huh, wife. You can come when you want and leave when you want. Do you think of me as your wife?" Mrs. Ye couldn't help but sneered. The person who comes and goes when called is not called a wife. If she is used to vent her physiological needs, what is the difference between her and those people outside who sell their bodies? In terms of momentum, Mrs. Ye is not afraid of the cold night weather. And every time I see the cold night sky, I feel that the flowing blood is coagulating, or running backwards. Mrs. Ye refused to be intimate with Yahantian. Yahantian couldn't lose face, but now he and Mrs. Ye shared will and woe, so she had no choice but to slam the door and walk out. Seeing that Yahantian was in a bad mood, Mrs. Ye made some inquiries and found out that there was something wrong with the business. Mrs. Ye was relieved. Although he can still be tough on Yahantian, if Yahantian knows that Yezikin is not his biological son. According to Yahantian's character, Yezikin will definitely be destroyed. Mrs. Ye held onto the phone tightly. She couldn't let the huge Yes group miss her son. Mrs. Ye contacted Ye Wei again. This time, Madame Ye also specially prepared a gift. The beautiful diamond bracelet was presented in the box. It must be said that Madame Ye spent a lot of money this time. When the two arranged to meet at the last place, Ye Wei and Madame Ye looked at each other and sat down. Mrs. Ye rarely had a smile on her face. "We haven't sat down and talked like this for a long time. Mrs. Ye, you remember correctly, we were face to face like this a few days ago." "That's different." Madame Ye shook her head and said, "This time I want to settle the differences with you." "Bury the hatchet." Ye Wei repeated this idiom and read it with a somewhat special meaning. Mrs. Ye then took out the diamond bracelet she had prepared earlier and pushed it in front of Ye Wei. "You know I'm an outspoken person and don't like to be tactful, so I'll just say it. I have been thinking about a lot of things in the past few days. I no longer have the original thoughts about Yahantian, so I naturally let go of your mother's affairs. You also lived in Yegia before, and I never treated you badly at that time and let you live the life of a wealthy lady. With a few words, Mrsya wiped away the deep-seated grudges in people's hearts, and then mentioned the only kindness she had shown to Ye in the past, trying to move her emotionally. Mrsya pointed at the bracelet box with her finger and opened it herself. The brilliant diamond bracelet inside appeared in front of Ye Weiwei, its crystal clear luster blinding the eyes. What does it mean? To show my sincerity, I will give you this bracelet. From now on, you and Chenur. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 679. Chapter 679, Brother Chen has lost everything. From now on, you and Chenur. Madame Ye hesitated as she pushed the bracelet in front of Ye Weiwei. Ye Weiwei was patiently waiting for what she was going to say next. Seeing her being so calm, Madame Ye sighed inwardly, I won't bother to care about you and Chenur's affairs in the future. When he becomes the leader of the Ye group, he won't need to rely on any marriage to obtain benefits. He likes it. I won't force anyone to be with whomever I want. Mrs. This is where she spread her words. It contains many layers of meaning. First of all, Madame Ye has clearly confirmed that Yezikin and Yehantian are not biological father and son, but the first thing she does is not to investigate the reasons, but to find ways to let Yezikin continue to be the heir of the Ye group. Secondly, Mrs. spent a lot of money to give her a bracelet, and said she would put aside past grudges and show her goodwill in order to bribe her not to talk nonsense. Thirdly, Madame Ye knew that she liked Yezikin, so she deliberately let go and said that she approved of her and Yezikin being together. But that prerequisite is to wait until Yezikin actually takes the position of the leader of the Ye group. Mrsya is indeed smart, and every condition appeals to people's hearts. But if Ye Weiwei accepts her, Madame Ye will feel that she is powerful and will not trust such a girl to stay with her son. But if she didn't accept it, Madame Ye also felt that she didn't have the same intentions as herself. Mrsya had complicated thoughts, but Ye Weiwei had already seen through it. Mrsya, I really don't dare to accept such a valuable thing. Ye Weiwei pushed back the box containing the bracelet. The act of not showing any nostalgia for this precious thing made Madame Ye feel a little different. Ye Weiwei calmly looked into Madame Ye's eyes and said calmly, don't worry, even if Brother Chen loses everything, I will still be by his side. With the words Yui. How could Madame Ye be relieved? Qiao Li, what do you mean by this? Are you trying to drag my son into the water? Into the water? In my opinion, letting him stay at Yegia is the real way to wade through troubled waters. The implication is that he does not want Yezikin to continue to stay in the Ye family and be Yehantian's son. But Mrsya would never allow her to do this. Even though she refused to listen to her good words, Madame Ye could not restrain herself from showing her true nature. He immediately warned Ye Weiwei, Qiao Li. Don't be shameless. I'm warning you, my son is the only legal heir of the Ye group. It must be him and only him. If you dare to interfere with it, don't blame me for treating you you're welcome. With a slight curve at the corner of his mouth, Ye Weiwei asked, Mrsya, you only wanted to protect his identity as an heir from the beginning. Don't you care who his biological father is? I don't care, no matter who it was an accident. Since the mistake has been made, there is no need to pursue it anymore. Don't care? Or it can be said that you don't actually care, but you are afraid that you will not be able to bear it after knowing the truth? His biological father may be a high-ranking official, or he may be an ordinary person with no identity. You shut up. Mrsya swept all the bracelet boxes on the table to the ground in anger. Because Ye Yuyi's words stirred up the unbearable past in her memory. She really didn't know the identity of that person, but when she knew that Yezikin was not Yehantian's biological son, she already knew the reason. At the beginning. End of this chapter. My green plums are super sweet. Author, Lukixi. Chapter 680. Chapter 680 The Wild Child with Unknown Father. Forget it, I don't want to mention what happened in the past. Xiao Li, don't you think about it? Chenner was born with dignity. If he learns that his identity is false, how serious a blow it will be to him. Ye forcefully convinced herself to stay calm and not to confront Ye Wei directly, so as not to irritate her. Madame Ye repeatedly changed her strategy and began to be moved by Ye Wei. Even though Ye Hantian is sorry for your Jiao family and you think the people in the Ye family are not good, Chenner has been crowned as the heir of the Ye family since he was a child. According to how strong he is, self-esteem, have you ever thought about the consequences? He responded rationally, you don't want to see me, you hate Ye Hantian, that's fine. But you have to think clearly, how has Chenner treated you since you were a child? With sincere pampering and love, you can't bear to let him go from high to high. The clouds fell into the abyss of the cliff. Finally, the theme is pointed out, Chenner is sincere to you, and I hope you won't let him down. The whole process of persuasion is very logical, and every sentence is deeply rooted in people's hearts. It is impossible to say that Ye Wei didn't feel anything in his heart. If she didn't know the identity of Mosi, she would definitely be shaken by Madame Ye's words at this moment, and then she would be at a disadvantage. But fortunately, she vaguely knew that Mosi had a bigger background than Ye Hantian. But she doesn't plan to tell Madame Ye now. Ye simply couldn't let go of fame and fortune, and wanted to use Yezikin to fight for those fame and interests. She didn't want Madame Ye to get her wish. What you think is not necessarily Brother Chen's. Even if he loses his identity in the Ye family, he will not become nothing. Ye Wei suddenly asked, does it mean that Brother Chen is no longer Yezikin, so you don't intend to recognize the son and treat him well? How is that possible? Madame Ye retorted without hesitation. Ye Wei spread his hands, that's right. Brother Chen is not a person who is greedy for power. If he knew that he was not the son of the Ye family, then he and I would be able to be together without any scruples. Do you think Brother Chen would be more happy? After all, you just don't want to let my son go, do you want to see him being ridiculed as a wild child with an unknown father? Ye directly used such serious words. Ye Wei lowered his eyes, picked up the tea on the table and took a sip. The tea swayed and made shallow ripples. The water glass was placed on the table. After a while, the shaking sleep became calm. Look, it's like this tea, but it shakes a lot when tilted. As long as you return it to its original position, it will eventually become calm. Ye glanced at her, picked up the teacup, and knocked it to the ground. If the teacup is tilted too much, it will be filled with water and become nothing. The two of them took tea as an example, and there was something in their words. Compare Yezikin to tea. Yes, only meaning is that no matter what happens when his identity is revealed, if he returns to his original identity, over time, everything will return to its natural appearance. The implication of Ye is that Yezikin's identity is revealed, which is likely to have serious consequences and is an irreparable mistake. Looking at each other. No one is willing to retreat. But compared to Ye, Ye obviously has a better chance of winning. If Ye is willing to explain Brother Chen's identity clearly, I may not dare to say it again after weighing the importance. Ye Wei wanted to induce Madame Ye to confess the original truth. End of this chapter.